everyone. I'm getting the go live ready for Instagram, and poor Shelton has to wait for me while I click the little go live button. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, we're here. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Shelton.
Woohoo!
I can't believe it
Thank
took
you.
us this long to kind of become friends and allies and buddies and confidants, so to speak. And I want to give you the floor and sort of say how you want to introduce yourself and your work in the world and what made you do the work that you do in the world.
Yeah. You want me to do that right now?
Yeah, I want them to. I want you to
Okay.
tell everyone who you are.
Well, let me reflect and respond on what you said. I feel like we've been orbiting for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I have two power animals, spirit animals,
You
and
do?
one of them's a turtle. And I
Really?
believe, oh yeah, it takes time. And I cherish what we've been kind of pinging each other back and forth on LinkedIn and all other social medias. And this is how relationships and trust is built. So I like this.
So I
Yeah.
won't get up and go show you that I have a framed photograph of a turtle in my office, but I do.
See.
It's it's on that. It's right there.
Okay.
That's a framed turtle. You can't see it, but I do.
Woo.
So
Yeah.
how do you like them apples?
It's small world.
Mine is
Um,
a tiger.
yours is a tiger. Okay.
Mm.
All right. So you asked me a question. I'm supposed to
I,
answer it.
give people your fancy bio.
Oh, my fancy bio. Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Shelton Davis. I'm a I came up as a designer. I still am a designer of experiences, industrial design and user experience design. And through that process, there's a lot of research, a lot of getting to know people and how they work. It's one of these lifelong pursuits of I like to understand people,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can build things for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that there was a gap. There
Mm-hmm.
was an empathy gap, and it was, while we can understand the the customers real well, because heck, they're gonna maybe potentially pay us, so there's incentive to have empathy there. There was lacking processes and acceptance of empathy within the culture of work, the teammates, the leadership, from CEO to the intern. They just kind of waved their hands at empathy and
Mm-hmm.
said they did it, but they didn't have a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I started 𝗵𝗇𝗏𝗏𝗄. It's yeah, yeah, down there. Um, it's a practice. It's a workshop practice place where we take teams through at turtle speed how to empathize with themselves and empathize
Mm.
with each other. Yeah.
I'm really moved by this turtle speed thing. I don't know. I'm picking up on that. There's something
Hmm.
very, I don't know. See, what's important about turtle speed for empathy?
Oh gosh. Uh, let's see here. We live in a very fast-paced world, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's go, busy, production, metrics, all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I, the spirit animal didn't really. It's always kind of been there. At my grandparents' house. I had a turtle. His name was Speedy.
I
I
had a
think he's still.
turtle named Lightning.
Yeah, see, it just
We
keeps
have too many
happening.
things in common. Okay.
And I love this turtle so much. And it was in their backyard. I never got to really see it because turtles do what turtles do. But when it
Mm-hmm.
came out, it would like kind of run turtle speed across the yard to the lettuce I put out for it. And I was like, this is really cool. Um, Tangent, but I uh, empathy turtle. The tail, the tortoise, the tortoise and the terror. There we go. The tortoise and the hare. Got it right that time. And as a track and field athlete in the past, speed was always my thing, but I also realized that practice made my speed possible. And practice took a long time. Relationships, learning how to pole vault, all the things took time. So turtles get there in the end, and they take their time, but they're focused on the lettuce, I guess.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm learning about doing and the pressure to get things done and be fast. And when I heard you say turtle, I always think that empathy takes a breath. Empathy takes a pause. It doesn't move at the at the speed at which we're doing all the time. I also don't think empathy moves at the speed of my mind. Empathy seems to move at the speed of my heart, which is much, much slower.
Wow, different rhythm.
Yeah. I'm
Interesting.
not well practiced. Hey, but I told you before we got on, I'm really moved by something on your website. Can I read something to you from your own website?
Go for it.
Can I?
Scared.
Empathy Lab believes that Black Lives Matter, acts of terror met with acts of terror only continues the terror. Women's rights are human rights. The U.S. has a tragic gun violence problem, and empathy, practicing humans, acting compassionately toward others is our solution to all of the above.
Yeah. What a day to live. What a year, what a lifetime to live in. Because I think there's a lot happening that we don't talk about. And the things that you read there, I honestly, as a small business owner, sometimes I'm afraid to say what I feel is radical when there's polarities around it. But I have to take a stance. I have to tell the world who I am and what my business is about, so they don't make assumptions, so they know what they're getting into, right? And the things that you read, I think I had a banner at one point in time that read, "Stop Asian Hate," because of what was happening in the States. I think we have to use our voices, and that's part of my voice down there. And I do truly believe that we slow down and empathize with ourselves and each other, that a lot of those issues start to fade away.
Why is it so hard for us to do it though? Because we are just really sucking at it right now.
A side thought. Who is taught how to, in school, who's taught how to balance a checkbook? Or, I don't know, what other things that we're not taught in school that we then learn late in life or later in life? Doing taxes, right? Like a lot of financial stuff, right? And we live in a capitalist society. We also live in a community. And I think that we don't do well at empathy is because we assumed that we all had the same skill set. And so, I mean, you see clients and you see therapy all day long, right? I think that we lean really hard into the scientific languages and forget, back to your point, the heart languages. We're all here. We're not here. We're not like in the soul. And I think it's just a missing language.
So teach me something. Teach me your version of this language, empathy.
Yeah.
I'm a humble learner.
So I learned the hard way how to not teach empathy. And what I learned, and this is with my empathy partner in crime, Traci Ward. When we first started talking to people about the practice of empathy, we gave them all the stats and the data and the research, and this person said that, and this other person did that. And the nerds of the group would grasp onto it, but most of the people just went like deer in headlights. It was too much for them because it was a subject that they thought they knew, and then I threw data at them, and it just didn't work. So there was about a 2-month gap, or maybe even longer than that, when I didn't even talk to Teresa, and I was like, look, I got to figure this out because it's not working what we're doing. I went back into my life and tried to figure out how is it that I process things over time in a practice. And I said it earlier, I was a track athlete, and I was a decathlete. So there's 10 events over 2 days, and it took forever to practice those things. And some of them I never knew how to do before I started, but I had coaches and I had time to learn. Like I said earlier, the pole vault, never did that before. And then they put a pole in my hands that go. I'm like, I'm gonna die, but I didn't die. So what I did, knowing that I can't throw research and data at people, I created a 10-step process called the 𝗵𝗲 decathlon, which really focuses on me empathy and we empathy. And if I was going to teach anyone anything, anyone that's watching, is you have to pause twice in the relationships, in the conversations that we have. You got to pause once for yourself to take inventory of what's giving you energy, what's on your plate on baggage. Are you self-aware? Or do you have power and privilege in this conversation that we're having? Kind of take a really quick inventory of yourself, right? Because if any conversation, it necessitates a back and forth, a dialogue. And so if you're not prepared to do it, it's kind of hard to like actually hear the other person. So that's the first pause for yourself. And the second pause is after you've gotten some information from them, from you, right? You pause to, again, take inventory, make meaning of what was shared, make sure we're on the same page. Like, am I teaching Traci something new and different? Does that matter? Or maybe I'm just helping her, relive or repractice the things she already knows. Do you understand what I'm saying? Kind of thing. It's like that second pause is to make sure that we're both hearing each other, right? So yeah, it's just 2 pauses for yourself and for others. And I think you said it earlier, the breath. That 2 breaths. We'll go to 2 breaths now.
Or the turtle.
Or the turtle. Yeah. I was gonna say sorry. I was gonna say I love the thought of slowing down, because there's this, if we're always in our brain, we're always in react mode, but like I really want to be in respond and respect mode. And if I can get myself there as often as possible, then I think my relationships, at least with myself and with others, improve.
Yeah, I mean, so much of what I hear you saying is that there is this pacing thing. There's this intentionality thing to really self-reflect before, and then other reflect. And it sounds so simple, but it's not. It's just really not. So I'm curious, when you're working with teams, I mean, even designers, I mean, I always love UX designers because you are masterful empathizers, because you have to think about how someone's going to use your stuff and but in your day-to-day life, when you're like trying to get a kid out the door to school, right? Or you're trying to navigate the budget with your partner and you're not quite agreeing on how much you should spend on vacation, or you're disagreeing with your next door neighbor who, does not hold the same political stance on something that's deeply meaningful to you.
Yeah.
Please help me there.
Oh my gosh. Those are 3 scenarios. Like I have a 9-year-old son, and he tests me. He tests me mightily. And empathy with my daughter, who's now 13, is much different than empathy with my son, who's 9. It takes, a breath with my daughter. It takes like a lot of breaths with my son to make sure that I'm showing up the way that I want to with him as a partner in life, father, a friend, right? And so I think empathy just comes at different speeds, and it's almost being able to downshift to the neighbor that has awkward political beliefs or might believe the earth is flat. I don't have to agree with that person, but I have to be, what's the word, in community with them, right? Like I think maybe age helps. I don't know. A question to you, like how do you do it right now? How do you How do you take a breath with those that have differing opinions?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. I mean, I think it's really, really hard. I think that there's also this, I don't know, I think that depending on your rank and privilege in society, you can feel this certain obligation to speak out and maybe not empathize, because you think speaking out will somehow serve that interaction.
Yeah.
There's just, it's confusing. But you know, I'm sitting here listening. I realize that we haven't actually defined empathy in this whole conversation. So I thought
Truth.
maybe go there, and then I just got a comment from Harry Adler, who's one of our listeners in Minnesota, that I'd love to bring in after
Hi,
we
Harry.
define empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to go for it?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you familiar with the golden rule?
Yeah. Yeah. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That one?
Yeah, that one. That's very selfish. It's thinking that the world revolves around you. Like the way that I want to be treated is the way that everyone else wants to be treated. And I think that let's upgrade our hardware, our bling from the golden rule to the platinum rule, to treat others the way that they want to be treated, right? And it's hard, because in order to know what someone else is doing, you have to actually like observe, listen, ask questions, and you don't have to agree with it, but I think that's the heart of empathy, is knowing that other people have different needs, and if you're trying to be truly an empathetic person, you need to kind of be open enough to hear them, even if you don't agree, or or even don't understand. I think that's a big one. Like, empathy is not necessarily about understanding. It's
more.
I don't understand half the things that my son says, but I understand his intent. I understand that he wants to explore and be curious, and create grand worlds in his head about how he wants to kick a soccer ball through that house and into a pool, right? Like, cool. I don't get it, but I can celebrate him and be there with him, right? I don't have to have complete meaning, and I think this is where the whole political polarity is rough. Just because I understand my neighbor has a thin blue line flag at his house, and which kind of speaks negatively towards people of color, doesn't mean that I can't, I can understand that, but I can still go over and ask him if he has an extra egg if I'm cooking something, right? I know enough that we're not going to talk about that stuff, and I'm not here to change him.
Okay. Yeah.
What?
I hear.
Go for it.
I'm actually putting myself in your shoes. I mean, you're a person of color going into a guy's house that's got a flag.
Yeah.
That might seem pretty uninviting, unwelcoming. And you're in community with this person, and you live with that all the time.
Yeah. I think that there's turtle by example, right? I'm not here to hate him, right? And just because I'm not here to hate him doesn't mean I have to agree, like disagree with everything he does and says. I can agree with, I love our community. I can agree with, we both don't enjoy when dogs poop in our yard, right? There's so many things we can agree on.
Yeah.
Right. I can agree on policing needs not necessarily defunding, but it needs, like, they need to be cared for. Like these first responders and these police officers, all these people, they need reform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that we can talk about,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. Just so happens his flag connotates other things.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is that you really move from an acceptance of who he is without trying to change him, and orient towards the common ground that you can find, and in a way, sort of protect your energy. Like, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking to you about stuff that I think is going to be an expenditure of my energy, and I don't want to.
Yeah, I think that's that first. Remember, I was talking about that first pause. But for
Yeah.
me, it's like, do I want to go in and try and debate this guy on policy and law? No, I don't, because he won't. Either I don't know it, or he'll know more, or he won't listen, or I won't listen. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So why focus there and waste one life? Like,
Okay,
go
so
elsewhere.
now my wheels are turning though, because I go
Go
back
for
to
it.
the statements on your website. So
Okay.
if you believe empathy helps Black lives to matter, and this
hmm
guy you can't
hmm
talk to and change his mind, then how does it help?
How does empathy help?
Mm-hmm.
Have you
Put
read? Go for it.
I'm putting you on the spot. Have I read
No,
any?
you're
Oh,
not.
you're going to
No,
teach me something. You're going to give me a book. Oh, I'm
a
getting so
book.
excited right now.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna
No
stand up
pressure.
real quick.
Yeah, just stand up.
It's a fantastic. It's a graphic novel. It's called March.
Oh, cool. It's John Lewis.
John Lewis. Three books. Let's see here. I don't know which one's right way up.
That way.
All right, there you go. There's a really interesting point in the training of those in the late 1960s that were going to go do sit-ins, right? Dining facility sit-ins, restaurant sit-ins, and they in the basement of a church, at least from what I recall in this book, they role played, put people in chairs, and as someone that's protesting, and then you had other people screaming at them, saying the worst things to them.
Mm-hmm.
And those that couldn't handle being spit at, being like mocked, all of that stuff, they were repositioned into something else in the fight for civil rights. Those people that can handle it, that could sit there and would be okay being yelled at, maybe even beaten, put in jail. You put them in, I don't want to say harm's way, but I think you put them in the point of view of these people that are so angry, and make them non-reactive, make them non-violent, and show everyone this is what your way is not the way. My way is with you, not against you, right? I just want to eat a hamburger with you at this counter. And I think that's the key to empathy. It's not a weapon, right? It's food.
I like that. But what I hear you saying that is that empathy takes an incredible amount of stamina, courage, and toughness, because sometimes what you're going to empathize with is going to be pretty aggressive.
You got it. Yeah, I think there's a spectrum of uncomfort that you can prepare yourself for, like anything in life that you want to do well. I don't know if you play a musical instrument or you're learning a new language, but it takes time, and that time helps you get more comfortable with the act of doing.
Yeah, very cool. Harry, thanks for waiting so long. So Harry asked a really interesting question about groups. Right?
Yeah.
So we've been talking a bit about, this was a little bit about groups that you just were saying, but
Yeah.
we've been talking a lot about interpersonal empathy between two people. And he said, I see that there's a challenge in our world that people are sort of engaging in groups, this group versus that group, right? And how many pauses do we need when we're in groups?
Yeah.
To empathize with another group.
I don't know, infinite pauses. I have no idea. Are we talking about groups? Like if we're, like people in two different groups speaking with each other?
If you're still here, Harry, you can weigh in on that. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a thought on this one.
Yeah, please do.
I do believe that when we're dealing with large group conflict, we aren't meant to bear that on single person shoulders. So we need to be gathering a heck of a lot more in community to uplift one another, because we can't sort of sustain empathy. This is why it's sad that we don't have a gathering place like churches used to be, where we would get spiritual sustenance. And we need spiritual sustenance to come together and sing and cry and stomp our feet.
Dance, scream. Yeah.
As a prerequisite to having any sort of empathy for another group, because I think that it's getting trapped in our bodies and we're getting so triggered and we're in a fight, flight, freeze response that we know has the brain move out of the state that it can possibly perspective take, where our social engagement system is shut off. So we're not interested in empathizing. Harry says we can be in a group business meeting and we can be in a family group.
Yeah. Is that the question? Like how many breaths in those? It depends on the family.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not a breath. Sometimes it's a tall
walk around the block.
Tall glass of bourbon or something. I'm going to come back. Can I come back to that? Because you said something I think is very important that might be part of this, work groups, family group concept. You said that we're missing the churches, right? And I don't remember the author of the book, but I think it was called Bowling Alone. And they talk about third places. Yeah. And technically, at least by that definition, or by the socioeconomic model that talks about, family and business are not a third place. Those are still very intimate places that you're not able, like, it's kind of hard to tell your boss in a work meeting something negative in front of everyone else without damaging the hierarchy of the business, because that's a focus, right? Same with the family, there's a focus. And I think the churches have a different focus of spirituality and community, camaraderie, as their main focus. And it's so with businesses, at least what I've found very effective and beyond the breathing is getting them to acknowledge the power and privilege existing in a room, and how to use it as in ways to ally each other, lift people up, or even just like step back and hold space for other people to talk. That's been a pretty powerful one, very, very, very uncomfortable one, for executives to acknowledge how much power they have over a conversation, or even in a family. I haven't done many family groups. It's usually been business oriented. You could speak to the family groups.
I could speak to the family groups, but I'm going to reflect what you just said first. I think there's something really powerful, and I'm going to just do a plug because I haven't done a graphic for it, but we are holding a live conversation on Monday with some of my therapy heroes. There's going to be about 6 that we're going to talk about rank, power, and privilege. And I'm going to try to convince Shelton to come. We'll see if I can get it. But it's going to be an interesting conversation where we're going to talk about how rank, power, and privilege impact interpersonal connection. And it'll be a group conversation, and we'll stream it live on Monday, but I've just got to create the graphic. But I think that's what you're giving a nod to. You're saying, look, Traci and Harry, what seems to get in the way of that breath is that sometimes the people in a position of rank or power aren't actually creating the breath space because they are running the conversation. If folks in power don't recognize that they are in power and they're overriding that breath space that you're talking about, then there's
Yeah.
no room for empathy in that room, and they have to actually lead it.
You're spot on.
I just repeating what I heard you say.
Yeah, you said it better than I did. Watch the recording. It's, have you ever done that? Have you done box breathing? You take like long breaths, right? I think that many executives, if they're like, let's everyone take a breath, they'll take a deep one, and everyone's like real short breaths. That's not an equal stance in that creation of space. But that's how it's been, right?
Interesting. You know, I only thought to share this because it's popping in, so I'm trusting it. But you know, after
Yeah.
George Floyd's murder, we ended up having a listening circle, a mixed race listening circle. And I got on with my blonde hair and blue eyes, and there was this 70-year-old Black woman that got on, and she said, "Why are you leading this?" I said, "Good question. Why am I?"
Yeah.
And and so we just on the fly decided, how do we want to do leadership here? I don't have to lead. And so we decided together as a group. There were about 20 of us, and we showed up together for 5 weeks.
Wow.
Listening to each other.
Yeah.
And it was much more of a pain in the ass, because then I had to organize on the back end. Who's leading this week, this section? Who's leading that section? And who's leading that section? And sometimes someone wouldn't sign up, even though we said as a group that's how we wanted to do it. And I'm like,
right.
And I think that is also true, that sometimes creating a space where everybody can breathe actually takes effort.
Yeah.
It takes effort.
It takes leadership and guidance and facilitation as well, right? I think that's the hard part. Oh gosh, I'm just thinking of all the books now. Priya Parker.
Yeah, Art of Gathering.
Art of Gathering. Yeah, don't be a cool gatherer. I think that as much as we want spontaneity to create the conversations, oftentimes the person of power has to start it and then step back, right? And I think that's exactly what you said you did. You're like, hey, I don't like, someone else run with it. What is our agreements as a community and how we want to do this?
Yeah, power's not bad.
No.
It just has to be shared. That's it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you do need to, I mean, when I work with couples, sometimes I'm a leader in the couples room. That's what they're paying me for, right? But I also have to know when to follow, which is part of my leadership.
Yeah.
Is to know when to follow. And then when I'm going to be strong, I ask for consent. Hey,
wow.
I'm in a pull rank right now. May I? Especially when there's loud fighting going on. Whoa, I'm going to jump in here and grab the reins of this session. And they'll say, okay.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's it. That's leadership, right? It's bambooing. It's flexible, right? It's not like I own the power. It is, we're sharing the power. Yeah.
I will comment on Harry's thing. I can't, all I can say is that in family groups, families, when I work with families, which I do, I love, it's some of my favorite work actually, adult families, that families oftentimes don't have a practice for empathy. And the parents could actually we actually have listening circles in my house.
Yes.
And my sons hate it. But I also noticed that it's made them good empathizers. And I'm like, you can hate it all you want, but we're going to have a conversation about the family chore list, and we're going to all sit around and weigh in on it and how we're going to run this house together.
Yeah.
So it does create some structure.
It's what is the latest thing that you have taken on to learn, latest like new thing that you're like, I'm going to learn this thing?
right now
Yeah.
in my life?
Yeah.
Well, I'm studying sex therapy and deep democracy.
Ooh, okay. Um,
I
when
should
you,
be taking on learning German, but I haven't.
it's okay. No
Thank you.
shame, no
I'm
judgment
gonna
at
cry
all.
that you just
No, like the sex therapy, like it's new, right? It is
hmm
something that is maybe foreign. There's other experts in the world, so you're in a learning phase. It's gonna be uncomfortable, right? And I don't think that I think that you're willing to take on the uncomfort as you kind of move into more knowledge, more expansive expertise, right? Um, why is it that we treat the what was it, the listening circle any differently, right? It's it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, and that's okay because we're going to get something better on the other side of it.
hmm
Uh, I
Yeah.
love that you do a listening circle at home. Ours is more like uh, a listening rectangle.
Yeah, it's a rectangle massively. You know, when my kids were not getting along in Home Depot, I used to say, sit down on the floor, we're going to have a listening circle. And they're like, not in Home Depot, Mom. And I'm like, yeah, in Home Depot. And we'd
Yes.
sit there on the floor and say, so what did you hear your brother say? And they're like,
I,
you are so embarrassing. I'm like, well, then don't act like a little jerk in Home
well,
Depot.
you know better than to do this again, don't you?
I'm making empathy's a punishment. They're like, oh, that's probably not a good lesson. You guys can all criticize me for that. It's all right.
Ah,
Harry just
it's
said something. Oh, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
no,
Finish what
no,
you were
go
going to
for it.
say.
What did Harry say?
Harry just said, what did Harry say? He said, yeah, that groups tend to, we tend to ally with our person that agrees with us inside of our group. I'm thinking about family triangulations. Like currently,
Mm,
there's two of us against the other two that goes on a little bit.
yeah,
We're talking about getting this family garden, and two of us really want it, and two of us don't. And, there's like
yeah.
this
Side taking, the allying.
side taking
Yeah,
that makes it. And then once you have that ally, I don't need to go talk to the other side
yeah.
because look, they validate what I think
They
and feel.
validated
So
me.
screw
Right,
everybody else. I got my
right,
in group here.
right.
I think, yeah.
That's a hard one.
What I will say is the social psychology research says that we always seem to need an out group.
We always seem to need an out group.
Yeah,
Say more.
human animals really like to have an outsider to be the common enemy to create some shared intimacy around. So that's kind of interesting. And once there's some really, I did an article about this last month, that in-group,
Mm.
out-group dynamics are really interesting. And so when they were doing the research, they said, we're going to split you in groups of coffee drinkers and not coffee drinkers. And they thought that they were going to have to give negative attributes to the not coffee drinkers for the coffee drinkers to start demonstrating prejudice. They didn't even have to. The minute you put them in the in-group, they have prejudice for the out-group with no other information. Fascinating that our brain just does this.
Wow. Wow.
It's weird.
I'm
We're weird.
we are weird. It just I recently did a little bit of research on chimpanzees and bonobos and how their social relationships work, and it just like what you just said just makes me curious. Is there definite in groups and out groups in those social settings? Is it different, similar to primates that are very close to us?
Mm. Well, if I ever go back and get my PhD, because I can do that for free here in Germany,
What?
it wouldn't cost me any money. I would get a PhD in social psychology
Oh wow,
because I find
that would be
this
cool.
group in group out group stuff fascinating. So
Yeah.
very interested in it. We're coming to the end of our time already, if you can believe that.
Mm.
It felt like we spoke for 5 minutes.
It always does. I mean, that's a good thing.
I just want to say that I just really appreciate you.
Likewise.
Like genuinely.
It's rare that you can nerd out with someone that's got so many commonalities that we continue to just like uncover.
I know.
And I love that. It's really cool.
You did know I was a competitive runner, right?
I do remember you telling me that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't have any rainbows on right now, but next time I think I'm gonna rainbow myself. I'm in my like go to work gear.
You have a rainbow watch on though.
Oh,
yeah,
kind of.
Garmin? Is that a Garmin watch for your running?
It's a Garmin. Yeah, it's really just for time. I don't care how many miles I run. I just go out and smell the trees and go look at bugs. That's my speed now.
Yeah. Well, we won't bore people with our running. I want to toot your horn. So how can people work with you at Empathy Lab? And who do you work with?
Great question. Toot my horn. I haven't heard that in a long time. I work with teams. I work with communities. I'm in the process of trying to put together almost like a magazine, a little book on like a self-start. How do I do me empathy? How do I do we empathy? Because that's how email me. I don't care. Find me. I will talk empathy. I have a small community that we meet every other Wednesday. It used to be every Wednesday, and we go through an empathy stand-up and empathy decathlon practice. It's routine, which is nice because it's kind of I'm helping people build muscle memory. But every Wednesday, for those people that would be individuals, we cover a topic. And this week's topic was change. So we defined it, we explored it. We talked about how we prepare for change, how we haven't prepared for change. And then we do a little kindergarten cool down with our hands, be all fun, and then we see each other for the next time. So yeah.
You have teams your own little church. You have a church then that you every other week.
Yep. Yeah.
That's really cool. I want that. That's very, very cool. And then you take what you learn, it sounds like, and bring it to other teams.
Exactly. Yeah. It's feed forward, right? What we can learn, let's share.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we have a ritual around this place that I don't remember how it started, but somebody started it and now we do it. So we end the conversation where you're not going to speak to me. Well, I'm one among many, but you're going to speak to all the listeners that have listened all over the world. Whatever is in your heart, either words of wisdom or a wish.
Words of wisdom. How about this? You are worth the pause, and they are worth the pause. Yeah.
That's really cool. I like how you keep it simple and it's not so elitist and academic. I really, really, really appreciate that. It's totally my vibe. I'm sure you.
I tried the academic thing and it failed, so I just need to be me.
It's not you. It's not me either. When people speak like that, I just get cross-eyed at it. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening live. For the few of you that did, I can't see how many folks listen on Instagram, but Shelton,
thanks, Harry.
This was so fun. Thanks, Harry's a gem. I got to track him down because I want to try to get him to do this too. He's been one of our listeners out in George Floyd Square in Minnesota.
Wow.
I think he's been listening for 6 years now with Sidewalk Talk. And he's a teacher in his own right.
Oh, wow.
For sure. He could have hopped on this call. So he's acting humble because he could have answered all these questions.
I'm sure he could have. It was great questions too.
But thank you so much for being here, everyone that's tuned in, and to all those that are going to watch the recording and then that will listen to the podcast when it goes live. And to you, Shelton, it was a real honor for me to wind up my night at almost midnight here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just been great to be here with you. So y'all, we'll see you on the sidewalk, okay?
On the sidewalk. Traci's was amazing. Thank you.
It's very cool. So hang tight.